My name is JD and this is my channel Frost and Forest. So today I am going to be doing a tarot tag that I think will be really fun. And so the tarot tag that I am going to be doing is the My Tarot Identity by Carrie's Mystical Musings. This was a tag that came out a while ago that was in celebration of Carrie's 3-year anniversary of her channel, which is awesome. Carrie, if you're watching this, congratulations, that's great. So this tag actually came out quite a while ago, and I have actually not done a VR to it before this point, obviously. But part of the reason why it took me so long to do this tag is because when I thought about it, I kind of started having like a weird existential crisis of like, who is JD? Which of my many decks represents me, and which one do I choose? And it just it got a little bit overwhelming. So I decided that maybe this was not a tag for me. But now it is spooky season, and I was just thinking about how fun it would be to start pulling out and playing with some of my Halloween decks, some of my darker decks, some of my fall decks. And so what I decided to do was I'm going to do the My Tarot Identity, but I'm going to limit it to Halloween decks, my dark and spooky decks, or my fall decks. And what I found is that once I limited it and gave it sort of that theme, suddenly I was able to do the tag, and decks just started coming to me for each prompt really easily. So that is what we're going to be doing today. We are going to do My Tarot Identity tag with a spooky spin on it. So the first prompt is the deck that matches your outward aesthetic. Think home decor, wardrobe, and your style. And this is an incredibly new deck to me. I just got it this week, but it was also the absolute perfect deck for this prompt. So we're going to look at it. And it is the Autumn Season Tarot. This is definitely my fall aesthetic. This is, this deck is very naturey. It's very focused on being in the outdoors. It has, from this woman, you can see here kind of an outdoorsy style, which is definitely my theme. I spend a lot of time outside in the woods. I like being outside. And, it's fall. And so some of the leaves are starting to change here, which is great. And, I like this very fall aesthetic, and this like outdoorsy fall, I think definitely represents sort of my outdoor or my outward aesthetic to other people. So this is a deck, like I said, that's very new to me, so I haven't really had a chance to work with it a ton yet. It is very beautiful. I have the winter one as well, and it looks like they fit very well together. So I think that it'll be great to have this for the fall season and then be able to move into the winter deck as the season changes. So I think that that's very cool. I'm very excited about this creator doing this different seasonal decks because I do work with my decks very seasonally. And so having a deck that feels like the outdoors is always something I'm interested in. And this creator is from Canada, so it does feel like some of the foresty space that is around me. So yeah, this is my choice for a deck that fits my outward aesthetic. Okay, so then the next prompt is the deck that fits a hidden or guilty pleasure aesthetic you secretly love and rarely show. So this is going to be pretty different compared to the last deck I showed you, but I am going to show the Tarot V for this one. So I do tend to kind of like some darker decks, and I do like TV shows and movies and things that are a little bit dark. And I think people who I mean, I think honestly, you all on YouTube probably know it more than some other people in my life because I talk about like my dark decks, but I really do kind of like darker things. And so there are TV shows and movies that I enjoy watching, especially around Halloween. I think that that's great. And so I thought that this one would be a fun one to kind of represent that sort of hidden identity. I mean, it's not exactly hidden. I don't talk to people about it as much. And a lot of my friends are not quite as into darker, scary things. So, you know, it's just not the most obvious thing about me. But I thought it would be fun to show this deck for that prompt to represent it. This is a fun deck. It's a vampire deck. It's kind of a creepy vampire deck. But like that Five of Cups, I think that Five of Cups with the ghost in the graveyard, or maybe they're vampires, I don't know. But I think that card is really beautiful. And so even though this is dark and spooky and kind of creepy, I think that there are a lot of really beautiful cards. Like, look at this Eight of Swords. It's just so moody. So that is why I like this deck. And that is why I thought it would be a good choice for this prompt number 2. The next prompt is the deck that totally matches your personality. And I'm gonna say, even limiting this to spooky or to Halloween decks, I still feel a little bit nervous about answering this question because it feels so big of like perfectly matches your personality. That just feels big. So let's just say I did my best in picking a deck that best matches my personality. And the deck that I chose is actually in this bag, but it is the All Hallows Eve Tarot. So this is Tarot Collectibles' newest Halloween deck. It's got the stars, and it's a deck that's pretty new to me. But the reason why I thought it fit this prompt is because I love Halloween. I love getting into Halloween. I love dressing up for Halloween. I love celebrating Halloween with my friends in the way that they want to celebrate. You know, I like to wear a costume to work or make sure I'm wearing my Halloween earrings. And some years I've even worn like orange lipstick, which is a little different for me. That's not my usual. But so this deck just felt like it really fit that because it is really about the dressing up and the out there Halloween. And so it felt right. I also would say, you know, around Halloween, I like to lean into the witchy. And I think that this deck definitely leans into the witchy. A lot of the people, like this one here, has those beautiful witches hats. So this one it seemed like it was the best option. I'll also say I do tend to like blingy decks, so the fact that it's the stars also made sense to me because it's got that sparkle. And part of why I really like this one of their Halloween deck compared to the other Halloween deck that Tarot Collectibles has is, well, one, actually, this is a side note, for this one, they have some replicate cards that are more wintry, which for someone who lives in a place that in theory could have winter during Halloween, it's kind of fun to have those extra cards that are more wintry. But the other thing that I was gonna say is I like the wood or the like vine woody border around this one. I think it's really cool. And so I think that that's one reason why I like this one better than the other Tarot Collectibles deck. That and all the witchy hats, of course. Yeah, so this is my choice for a deck that totally matches my personality. So then the next deck is the deck that represents a fun fact or something unique about you. And for this one, I chose the Ofrenda Oracle. So this is a really cute kind of lenormand plus deck, meaning that it does have sort of the base 36 Lenormand cards, but then it also has a bunch of extra cards, because I think it has, I don't know how many cards it has, but it has a lot more cards. And so it's a really great little Lenormand deck, which I love. But the reason that it represents this prompt for me is because it is one of the few decks that I have that has a Spanish guidebook and has Spanish written on the cards, as well as not just being one of those decks that's sort of a translation from other, like, you know, the Los Scarabeo decks or things like that that come in lots and lots of different languages. This one was actually created by someone who spoke Spanish. And so that's why this deck is good for this prompt, because a fun fact about me is I used to speak Spanish really well. I say it like that because I actually learned Spanish as a child, and so a fun fact, I learned how to read in Spanish before I learned how to read in English. And so, you know, this deck seemed to represent that really well. The reason why I kind of jokingly say I used to speak Spanish is because I have not used it for many, many years. And so speaking it nowadays is a little bit harder for me. However, you know, I can understand it very well. I can watch TV shows in Spanish and be fine. And I am very confident that if I got dropped in a Spanish-speaking country, I would be completely fine. It just, these days, it's a little bit slower for me to speak it. But yeah, that's kind of a fun fact. The Ofrenda deck is a very beautiful little Lenormand. The next prompt is the deck that feels like your alter ego. And so for this one, I had to go with the Practical Magic Oracle. I really, really love this deck. I think it does a great job of connecting to the movie Practical Magic. And it is definitely one that I like to pull out during the Halloween season. Practical Magic is a Halloween movie that I watch every single year because I love it. But the reason that I think that this one kind of fits into my alter ego is because I guess I kind of wish I was witchier than I was. You know, I love the world that Practical Magic is. I love the magic in that world. I love the way it's portrayed. And so this, you know, like this iconic card where they jump off of the house at the end, you know, this is definitely my alter ego. And so this just made sense for me to share because I love the movie. I love the books even, although they're a little bit different. And I love the magic, and I love to pretend that the world is as witchy as it is in Practical Magic. And this deck kind of helps me connect with that. So this is the deck that I chose for my alter ego. The next prompt is the deck that fits how you are as a bestie. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't 100% know why I chose this deck. It felt right for this prompt. Maybe, you know, as I'm looking at the cards, it'll come out a little bit more. But the deck that I chose for this is the Shadowland Tarot. This is a deck that I really love. I honestly don't tend to use it quite as much during spooky season. I tend to use it other times of the year more, but I definitely think it fits into that spooky season feeling. And so, you know, I decided to show it. You know, and I think part of the reason why it maybe felt good for this prompt is that this deck, even though it's a little dark and shadowy, it is a very sweet deck and it's a very deep deck. And so I guess, you know, thinking about friendships, I try to be supportive of my friends, whether that's, you know, just kind of superficial. So like maybe just doing a quick pull with the Shadowland, you can definitely do that because you can see the RWS in it. But if you want to go deeper, this deck absolutely has the capacity to go deeper. And so, you know, if my friends need more support, I try to be that for them. And I'll also say that like this, even though the art is, you know, is very different from some art in some other the decks, this feels like kind of a quiet deck to me, sort of. I don't know if that makes sense at all. And so, you know, I can be in big groups and things. I can be kind of a quiet person. But I can also, you know, I like kind of creepy and out there things sometimes. So maybe that's why this deck fits. I don't know. I just, for whatever reason, this is just when I was thinking about the one that represents me as a friend, this is the one that made sense to me. And this is such a great deck. I love this deck. I've done a deep study with this deck. This Five of Pentacles, this Five of Pentacles is such a beautiful card. And it's a beautiful way of thinking about that. Yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I did a deep study of this deck. I really love it. I love the art. I love the kind of kookiness, but also just how sweet this deck is as well. So the next prompt is the deck that represents a place you'd love to live or a dream vacation. And this one might seem like kind of a silly choice, but that's okay. So the deck that I chose for that prompt is the Legend of Sleepy Hollow Tarot. So Sleepy Hollow takes place, I think, in New York. So I definitely think that this is kind of represents a place I would like to visit. I have spent a little bit time out east, but I have not spent a ton of time out there. And so I would love to go to some of the historic sites out east, you know, in New York. I've been to Salem once, but it was only for a day, so I'd like to go for longer. I think part of the reason why I'm attracted to that and think that this could be a vacation deck is because I really like history. And so I would love to go to some of these sites that are very historical. And I just think it would be really cool. So I definitely think that this deck sort of represents that. As far as the Sleepy Hollow deck goes, this is one of my absolute favorite Halloween decks ever. I love using it around the Halloween season. I use it a ton. You know, it's not the best quality deck in the world. The cardstock is a little bit weird. My copy came not cut correctly, so I had to like cut a few of the cards, like cut little parts that were hanging off the cards. But even with all of that, I really, really love this deck. And I think that part of the reason why I love it so much is that I enjoy reading the Legend of Sleepy Hollow around Halloween. I think that's really fun. I also love how witchy this deck is. There are so many cards that are very, very witchy that I just think is really cool. And so this is, yeah, like look at that card. It's so witchy. So this is definitely a deck that I really love using during the Halloween season, and I use it a ton. And I would definitely love to go to some of these historic sites. Okay, so we're almost done. We just have a few more prompts. The next prompt is the deck that brings out your creative side. For this one, I chose the Embroidered Graveyard Tarot, Oracle. So the reason that I chose this deck for this prompt is because as soon as I got this deck, it was just one of those decks that I wanted to use straight out of the box. And I just, as soon as I got this deck, I had so many different ideas of how I could use it and what kinds of spreads I could use it with, and you know, what kinds of questions I might want to use it for, also what kind of decks I might want to use it with. I just had so many ideas kind of right out of the box with this deck that I do think that it is a creative deck. I also kind of started thinking about this deck also just kind of seemed like a deck that I could use for helping to tell stories. Like sometimes I like to play a game, you know, game is maybe strong, but I like to do this thing where I will just kind of make up a story based on the cards that I pull. And, you know, as I move the story along, I pull another card and it kind of gives the next step in the story. And I just think it's a really fun way to be sort of creative and think about how cards connect with each other. And so this is one of the decks that I have used, or that I have done that with, and it has gone and worked really well. So this definitely brings out my creative side. And I'll also say, I think this deck is beautiful. It feels like these borders feel so perfect for this time of year. And it just, I really, really love this deck. I'm really happy that I got this deck, and I have just been using this deck a ton. So it made sense for this prompt. So this is the embroidered graveyard oracle. So then the next prompt is a deck that represents the landscapes in your dreams. For me, I chose the Haunted Manor Oracle. And yes, I know this deck is very out of print, so I'm sorry for showing it, but also it's a beautiful deck, and it is very, when I start telling you why, it does make sense that this makes sense for this prompt. So this is a very beautiful deck, as I said, but the reason why this makes sense for this prompt is because one thing that happens to me is I sort of have these reoccurring dreams where I am in a new house and I am just going from room to room in this house. Usually it's I'm trying to find someone or I'm trying to get somewhere, but I just end up going through all of these different rooms in the house. Often I'm not with other people, but sometimes I am, and it's never the same house. So it's not like I'm always going back to the same house. It is different houses, but it just, you know, is me moving through these spaces because I'm trying to get somewhere or I'm trying to get something done. And so this deck, I think, makes a lot of sense because it does show different rooms in a house and different spaces. And so, you know, as I'm going through these cards, you're kind of, yes, there are some objects, but you're also like going from room to room in some ways, it sort of feels like. And so it kind of made sense as the perfect prompt for this deck because you are traveling through. I will say, in my dreams, they're not always this creepy of houses. Sometimes they're very different houses, but there is a feeling of uneasiness in the dreams because I am trying to move through this space that I don't really know. And so I just thought that this deck made perfect sense for this prompt. So this is the Haunted Manor, and it is the deck that represents my dream landscape. Oh, I'll also say, related to this deck, it sounds like there is going to be a new deck coming out maybe next year, early next year, that is the Haunted Cottage. So it doesn't look like it's exactly the same deck as this, but it has kind of the same vibe. So that might be an option for some folks who are excited about this deck. Last prompt is a deck that represents your life currently. This captures your mood, energy, or season of life at this moment. And so, of course, I had to do the Halloween Oracle. When you all see this video, it will be the beginning of October. I am recording this at the end of September, but I'm getting into the Halloween spirit. And so it just seemed like this was the perfect deck to talk about this time of year because it is very much the Halloween time. And part of what I love about this deck, and I think it really represents this prompt really well, is because yes, it's a Halloween deck, but it also has some of those like context around Halloween. So like this feels like a very fall card, and you know, we're in fall, the leaves are starting to calm down, and it's starting to, you know, the leaves are starting to change. And so it feels like the right time of year. Plus, it also, you know, is an awesome deck for kind of getting excited about Halloween, I think, as well. So this oracle is one that I actually only got last Halloween. It's a mass market deck, but I will say I really love it. I really love it as a Halloween oracle. And part of the reason why I got it is because I kind of feel like there are not as many Halloween oracles as there are Halloween tarot decks. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just not seeing things, or not seeing things that I like. But I was looking for more Halloween oracles. And so I decided to get this one because this is just kind of the classic. And I will say that since I got it, I really love it. It's a great deck. It's a great deck for the season. And it is kind of a deeper deck than maybe what I gave it credit for before I got it and when I was just seeing it everywhere. But I definitely think that this deck captures the mood for this time of year, which is very exciting. It's almost Halloween, y'all. Okay, well, those were all of the prompts. It did look like there was a bonus prompt that has one to do with divinatory reading. I didn't really have a good deck for that. Just looking around for a minute. I didn't really have a good deck for that. So I am probably not going to do the bonus one. But thank you so much for joining me. This was so fun. Thank you, Carrie, for creating this amazing tag. It was very fun to do. As I said in the beginning, it was a little bit overwhelming at first. But once I kind of was able to put it in my own context, it was easier for me to do. And I got really excited about some decks to talk about, which is always great. What about you all? For those of you out there who already did this tag, did you find it hard to do, or is that just a me thing? And, you know, for those of you who maybe don't have a channel but want to participate, I would love to hear in the comments, what are some of the decks that you associate with your identity? I always think it's so interesting to hear how people took these different tags and what direction they took them in, because I definitely watched a lot of these before I recorded mine, and so it was just so interesting to see how different people took different prompts, which is kind of, I think, the magic of a tag like this, that you can just get creative and take it in so many different directions. So I think that that's awesome. If you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you could give it a like, as well as if you are not subscribed yet, you might want to think about subscribing. For those of you that have subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. And, you know, for those of you that haven't, just a little bit about my channel. I release one video a week, and I really focus on tarot content, the decks that I'm using, how I think about my collection, maybe some new decks that I got, maybe some old decks that I love, just kind of whatever's rolling around in my head. So yeah, if you want to see more videos and get notified, you'll want to hit the subscribe button. But anyway, thank y'all for stopping by.